friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today for my Monday this and that video. And for those of you who are new, these types of videos are the ones that I try to get out as soon as possible because I'm about 3 weeks ahead on most of my other videos. So this is something where I can keep you more currently updated on what's going on, to lead you back to old videos, let you know of new videos that are coming out, and to answer any questions that may have come out during this past week. So let's get to the topics of today, and I'm very excited because I finally decided to try dehydrating the excess eggs we're still getting in right now from our chickens, which is surprising. Half of them are molting right now. I have a lot in the freezer. As anyone who's been following me for some time will know that my favorite way has been to just freeze the eggs scrambled up in twos, because that works perfectly for most recipes and for making scramblers, omelets, or just regular scrambled eggs. And so I really like that, and I'll probably still continue to freeze them, but I have been very, very happy with the dehydrated egg powder and what I've used it for thus far, even though I've only been doing it for about a week now. So right here I have about a pint jar, and I would say there's at least 15 eggs in this little jar right here. I do have it vacuum sealed. This is the one I'm going to put up for long-term storage, but I currently have another 10 eggs dehydrating because I'm going to keep experimenting with them. But let me talk about first how I do this. So these eggs are raw. I'm not cooking them first, but I am scrambling them. So I'm finding that for at least the Nesco dehydrator and the standard size of those trays, and I'm using the fruit roll-up trays, that 5 eggs per tray is perfect. You don't want them in there too thick because it will take way too long to dehydrate and your results won't be as good. I put 5 eggs in a measuring cup at a time, and then I mix them up really well with a fork first. And then I pour them directly onto the tray. There's no need to add any kind of oil or anything like that. And then I take the fork and I make sure it's all evenly distributed across the tray. Now what you want to make sure for ease of movement is have the trays already on your dehydrator before you pour the egg mixture on there, because you don't want to be moving that around and then spilling it and slopping it around. You also want to make sure that your dehydrator is very level. This was the mistake I made the first day that I went to dehydrate them. Is I usually set them on my freezer out there because that's closest to one of our solar power outlets, and the freezer gives me a flat surface. But the problem is the freezer isn't completely flat. It does kind of have a little bit of a bow to it. So what happened was the eggs pretty much flowed to one side, and I didn't realize that until later when I checked on them hours later. And so it was really thick on one side and very thin on the other, and some of it even seeped down into lower trays. So those took a lot longer to dry, and you see a lot of settling to the bottom under those eggs. So if that happens, you end up with some that's just a little bit too thick. You still should do this anyway, is through the drying process. After a few hours, go check them. If any seem dry, just start breaking that up and then flipping the pieces over. You'll find out very quickly if there's some on the bottom side that still need dehydrating, and by flipping that over, that will help them to dehydrate faster. And if you want to, you can remove the already dried eggs from that. And then when it's all done, I just break them up so that they're easy enough to put into this coffee grinder. Now I have 2 coffee grinders that I use. I have one that's dedicated only to coffee grounds, and then this one is for everything else. But anyway, I just powder it up using this and then pour them into the jar like this. Now, as I said, this one was vacuum sealed. I vacuum sealed this one using the brake bleeder pump and the food saver top. I have several videos on how to do that. I'll link to one of those down below. So I just put this yellow lid on there for looks, but it is vacuum sealed. Now, whenever I vacuum seal a jar, I still put a band over it. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and put the band over this, put a silicone ring in this one, and then use that for the next jar that I'm starting. The next jar I'm starting is again going to be the one for using to make more things right away, so I can keep experimenting with it, such as making homemade pasta, and so on. So I'm putting the band on there just to make sure in case that comes unsealed, but it hasn't yet. I've left it for a full day. Now, what you want to do whenever you're vacuum sealing powders, and you won't really be able to see it, partly because it's the same color, but right at the top, I have a little piece of fabric, just some scrap fabric I had, and it's all cotton, that I put over the top of the powder so that when I go to vacuum seal, it doesn't pull the powder up out with the air, which will then get coated on the just between the rim and the lid, and that's going to prevent a seal. Or even if it does seal, it's going to come unsealed eventually. So putting some kind of barrier there is important whenever you're vacuum sealing powders. It can be a piece of paper towel, it can be a piece of coffee filter, whatever it is you have. I usually use fabric because I have a lot of fabric scraps, and then I can just wash it and reuse it. So anyway, this is going into storage for at least 6 months. Now let me talk about what I have done. I've done 3 experiments so far with the egg powder. And the very first thing I did, of course, was to make scrambled eggs. So I wanted to rehydrate it first. Now how this is going to typically work is that a slightly rounded tablespoon is going to be equal to an average size egg of the powder. So I took 2 tablespoons of the powder, and then to that, for every tablespoon of egg powder, you want to use about 1.5 tablespoons of water to rehydrate it. And then just mix that together and let it sit in the dish for just a couple of minutes. Then at that point, I went ahead and scrambled up the eggs. And though the texture was a little bit different, it wasn't gritty. It was actually really smooth. That's what I found was different. I think the main reason why is because it's been powdered up first. So you're not going to get that same kind of lumpier type texture that you'll get from fresh eggs when you make a scrambled egg. But if you're using it in something like a quiche, an omelet, I think it's going to be perfect. And then when I went to taste it, I really didn't have high expectations. And I was surprised that though the appearance and the texture looked a little bit different, because again, the color is definitely more uniform, as you can tell by the egg powder in the jar. But the flavor to me tasted as if I had just used 2 fresh eggs. So that really surprised me, because years ago, before we even had our chickens, I had bought some Honeyville egg powder. It was just the regular dehydrated egg powder that they have, and I was not impressed. Then the next thing I did was the very next day, I tried making some pancakes. So I put the eggs into the bowl I was going to make the pancakes in, rehydrated them first, and then added my regular pancake ingredients, which changes up every time, just the flour, baking powder, and so on. And again, was very impressed with how the pancakes turned out. They turned out fluffy, they held together very well. That was kind of my concern, was maybe it wouldn't hold together as well being dehydrated, and might possibly make it harder for the things to hold together. But no, the pancakes held together better than most of my pancakes really do, because I'm always adding all kinds of stuff in there. But again, very fluffy, very tasty, was very pleased with them. And then the next experiment I did was to pull out some of my homemade applesauce from 2019, because that was when we had the banner year on the apples. And I made some apple bread out of those. And in that case, I was making 2 loaves. I needed 4 eggs. So I used 4 tablespoons and the proper amount of water, rehydrated in the bowl, and then started adding all my ingredients to that. And the bread turned out excellent. So the next one I'll do eventually will be making the pasta. And so the plan is about 6 months from now when I go to sample these. And the reason I say 6 months, that's the maximum amount of time that I'll need for my eggs to last. I would assume that vacuum sealed in the jars, they're going to last for lots longer than that, maybe even years. But I just need them to last for 6 months to get us through the winter when our chickens are not laying. And 6 months is plenty amount of time, because usually it's just a few months in there that I'm not getting eggs. And so I'll be doing that update down the road once I know that. And by then I'm hoping to have some more things that I've done with the powdered eggs, so I can give you more updates on that as well. But mostly I wanted to get this out right away because I know a lot of people are still struggling with the whole freeze dryer. Do I invest in it? It's so expensive. Do I need it? And it's really all going to be a matter of choice. Some people love their freeze dryers. Some people hate them. Some people are somewhere in between. So now I'm doing some of this other stuff just to show that yes, you can dehydrate almost anything that you can freeze dry. There's going to be a few things that you can't, such as ice cream. And then you'll have things that just don't, the texture is going to be different and won't work as well for cooking, such as dehydrating different types of meats, except for ground beef. Ground beef dehydrates up beautifully, works great in sauces and soups. Any of your other meats, like your turkey, chicken, and sliced beef, like you would just make those more like a jerky. Or you can dehydrate them thoroughly and then powder them up. If you want some more information on that and you're still trying to decide what you want to do, please go check out the video I did on freeze drying versus dehydrating that I'll put in the description box down below. But what I'm also trying to do here is for those that are just really can't afford to buy a freeze dryer and are getting tired of feeling pressured into buying one, I'm trying to do more things like this just to show you that yes, you can dehydrate a lot of stuff, and in most cases you don't even need to blanch it. Potatoes so far are the only thing I know that need to be blanched first before dehydrating. Everything else, just throw it right on there and go. And it's a simple process, and they can rehydrate well. They're just going to take longer than freeze dried, so usually I'll throw those kind of things directly into soups and sauces and let them cook right along with everything else, and they'll rehydrate while they're doing that. So from Misfits Market, I was glad to finally see they had organic ginger. I love fresh ginger way better than powdered. I use a lot of powdered, but around here getting my hands on fresh organic ginger is really expensive, and we have yet to get it to grow well for us. I might try again this next spring, but at any rate, I was glad to see this. And so what I'm going to be doing is freezing all this up, so when I have that, when I'm wanting to make kimchi or other things that I really prefer having fresh ginger in, I'll have it ready to go. And yes, you can freeze ginger, and I'm not even going to bother to peel it, because here's one thing I've learned. I haven't tried it yet, but ginger that's been frozen is actually easier to peel, but I actually have no plans on peeling it. When I'm ready to use it, I'm just going to chop and use it up, skins and all. And yes, you can eat those skins, and especially if you're going to grate it or use it in a tea that it's going to be strained out, it really doesn't matter. But the skins on ginger is so thin, and why would I want to waste all these little bumps and things on here? There's just a lot of waste in peeling, so just make sure it's clean is all. So what I'm doing is I'm going to be breaking these up in pieces like this, just so that way once it's frozen, I don't have, you can cut it too, but they're easy enough to break. So that way I can just reach in and grab a piece or two, however much I need at the time, and then chop it up and use it in whatever it is I'm going to do. And then I'm going to put it in one of my little silicone bags here like this. This is also going to be great for the next time I want to make my cold and flu remedy syrup. And if you're interested in these silicone bags, I always have a link to them down below. And this is a small business owner here in the United States, and I started working with her directly. I just contacted her one day just to make sure that she was indeed located in the US, get to know her a little bit. Really nice lady, and she offered to set me up as an affiliate and also to give you guys a discount on your orders. So if you go through that link to get the silicone bags, you can get a discount. So I've been very pleased with them. I like the way, by the way, they can stand up on their own because of the base of them. So I've been doing a lot of freezing and storing food in these. So I just slide that on there, and when I get it most of the way shut, I try to work out as much of the air as I can. And then you want to make sure you slide that on all the way. So get it on there as far as you can. And then I'm just going to toss this in the freezer, and then I'm going to do another order and add to that. I'm so excited to finally have some fresh organic ginger ready to use for some of my different Asian dishes and so on. So a lot of people, they saw my video recipe on making your own hair growth oil. Now, I can't guarantee this is going to work as well for everyone as it did for me. Because I have no idea. It was just a recipe I came up with. It's something I change up every so often. But several people saw that, which I'll link to that video recipe down below so you can make your own if you want. But several people wanted me just to make it to sell on my store. And I thought about it for a while and I finally decided to. Well, my first batch of oil, because I like to let the oils infuse for 2 months at least before I do anything with them. So my first batch of oils finally were ready. And so I did get some of the hair oil in 3 different scents. The essential oils used in those 3 different ones, the peppermint, the rosemary, and the lavender, are all also very good for helping to encourage hair growth. So if you're having thinning hair, you've lost a lot of hair, I'm hoping that will be helpful. I only made a small amount because I want to see how well it does before I dedicate to making a bunch. So if it sells out before maybe even this video comes out or right after this video comes out, just be patient. It'll probably be a couple months because I'm just getting some more oil started up to make more. Again, I just want to see how well it does. But don't forget to check out the video recipe because you can always make your own and save yourself some money that way too. And we finally got out there and picked our apples from the tree. Now, this wasn't a big banner year for apples, but we did pretty good. We got 1 basket full. What I found with apples is that we'll have one really big year, and then the next year we'll hardly get anything, and then the next year we'll get a little bit more, and it kind of builds its way up again. But I have to say, these apples right here, they're not all this way. Normally our apples are a lot smaller. That's just common when you live on the west side of the mountain range. We can grow plenty of apples, but they're never quite as big as the ones that we grew on the east side of the mountain range over in the Wenatchee area, all those areas over there. That's where most of the Washington state apples that get shipped all over the United States actually come from, is the east side of the mountain range, because over here they're usually small and most of them can be pretty tart, but they're great apples for pies and so much more. But anyway, I was surprised to see apples this big. These are Wenatchee style apples, where this is like hometown apples for me. Okay, now a couple questions I want to cover before I close out this video. So I've been getting a lot of the same questions over and over in this past month, and one of them is about the international orders. People will go to the store, but they don't see my notes that are right on the front page, which is understandable because you have to actually click on like read more for all my little announcements that are out there. But international orders, yes, we do them, but it would take me a lot of time and a lot of headache to sit down and figure out pricing for shipping for every single country. And here's the other thing too. If I set you up that way, if I took the time to actually do every single country, which would probably take me a month to do all that, Etsy would still automatically set it at priority shipping. You don't have the option of going like first class, which priority is going to cost way more than doing the first class shipping. So if you message me and I set it up as a custom order, especially if you're combining other items into that order, it's going to save you even more by me figuring that out for you. Once I have that message and know exactly what you want, I just set it up from that message. I can only set up a custom order from a private message or a custom order request. And then once that's done, Etsy will notify you that it's ready to purchase. And there we go. It's actually a pretty simple process. You just have to contact me first through Etsy, and that's how we make it work. And another question is in regards to the cleaning powder. A lot of people came in there because of the living toilet paper free video that just came out, and I linked to that recipe on my cleaning powder that I use in the laundry and many other things. And I guess I didn't clarify in that video that you can use any salt that you want to use. It doesn't have to be sea salt just because that's what I used. It can be any type of salt. The reason I'm using sea salt is because it is salt I bought many years ago from Glory Bee. Got an awesome deal on it. That was back when I could get a 50-pound bag of sea salt for $8, believe it or not. So $16, I had 100 pounds of sea salt, but it's stripped out sea salt. That means it doesn't have any of the minerals that you're going to find in like your Celtic sea salt, your Himalayan salt, or your Redmond real salt. And so what I did was I started stocking up on the more expensive mineral rich salts for using in food related things and saving the sea salt for anything that has to do with cleaning. And that's the only reason I said that. But you can, whatever the cheapest salt you have, I don't recommend using your good expensive Himalayan or Redmond Real or whatever your mineral rich salt is. Don't use that for your cleaning powder. Go the cheapest salt you can when it comes to that. And Epsom salts are different. You can add Epsom salts, but I still say use the regular salt along with that. The purpose of the Epsom salt, if you choose to use that, is more for softening your laundry. And I'm not worried about that, especially with the other ways that I'm using that cleaning powder. I wanted to keep it simple enough that I can use it as a scouring powder, use it in my dishwasher, which I only run a few times a year, and also using it in hand washing dishes as well. And I've tried it in all these and it works great. I add it to my water in my carpet cleaner. It does a great job on that. But anyway, I'll go ahead and link to that video too, but I just wanted to answer that question on the salt. Any cheapest salt you can get, that's what I recommend. All right, well that's it for my this and that for this week. Be watching for those videos to come out down the road, and I hope you'll give that dehydrating eggs a try and see how it works for you. By the way, I didn't add anything to the eggs. It's just straight eggs. I didn't put in water, milk, salt, nothing, just eggs. And that's it. And dried it, powdered it up, and so far it's working perfectly for me. I'm very, very pleased. So anyway, share your experiences down below, any thoughts you have on anything I talked about, and don't forget to check out the links in the description box down below. Thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.